Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Superboy Beyond. And we are back with another Beyond commentary for you today. We're not watching Superboy, as you can tell from the title of this video. We are returning to the Ruby Spears Superman animated series, which is a show that I've thoroughly enjoyed watching for the first time. I know this is one of your favorite adaptations of Superman, and yeah, we are moving on to episode 5, which is titled The Big Scoop / Overnight with the Scouts, which I'm guessing is another Kent family album story.
Yes.
So here we go, episode 5. Now, if this is your first time watching one of our commentaries, just so you know, you're not going to hear any audio from the episode, but you will see a heavily filtered version of it up there in the middle. This is just so you can keep in time with us. This is a full uncut commentary, and we will count you in with a 3, 2, 1 play. And yeah, you'll be able to just watch alongside us if you sync up your copy. So get ready. It's Ruby Spears, Season 1, Episode 5, The Big Scoop, in 3, 2, 1, play. And it's funny, every time we start watching one of these, I still think it's brilliant that they actually got permission to use the Superman movie theme tune for this.
Yeah. I think Marv Wolfman kind of, talked about it in the article in Back Issue Magazine. He says, they wanted to make it somewhat of a timeless show, kind of what, Tim and Dini did with the animated series in the 90s.
Yeah. And you can argue whether, the Tim and Dini version was more successful. I mean, you could definitely argue that it was because, let's face it, it ended up spinning off like multiple Justice League shows and Young Justice and Teen Titans. Well, actually, Young Justice technically wasn't spun off from it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I think if the Ruby Spears show had had a little bit more of a budget so that the animation throughout the entire episode could look as good as the intro sequence, I think it maybe would have been a little bit more popular. But
well, part of the issue. It's written by Michael Reeves, a very famous sci-fi writer. But part of the problem was, and this is what happened when Ruby Spears was still working. They had a website, and they had this ability that you could write in and ask when stuff is coming out. And I messaged them, and this is like the mid to late 90s. I said, when is the Superman animated series that you guys did going to be released? And they said, well, that's up to Warner Brothers. That's their property. We have no say on the release of it. And the fact that we licensed it, we didn't really get the chance to do a lot of stuff that we wanted to do with it because I asked a lot of questions. I was annoying the hell out of them.
I mean, I'm sure it's not a show that's brought up very often, so I doubt they minded that much,
I think this show is brought up just a slight bit more than Superboy.
Maybe. I don't know. I remember when we first started doing these commentaries watching the Ruby Spears show, and somebody said in the comments, they considered themselves a pretty massive Superman fan, thought they'd seen everything, and they didn't even know this show existed. And they're huge Superboy fans. So, I don't know. I think the fact that this is animated makes it slightly less known. I think Superboy has a little bit more going for it purely because it's live action.
Yep.
But I guess that's all down to the audience anyway. If you're somebody that prefers animated shows over live action, maybe you would know about this one and not Superboy. It's just one of those things.
And the funny thing is that both these shows started at the same time.
Yeah, it's really weird that they both started in '88, and yet they're both probably the two most forgotten Superman shows ever.
And can we comment on this guy's outfit?
I was just thinking he looks kind of like one of the characters from some of the later Saints Row games. Sort
Yeah.
of over the top.
And as usual, Michael Bell is doing such a great job as Lex Luthor here.
And I do like I forget the name. I know she's not Miss Teschmacher. I know she's got a different name in
Ms.
this.
Morganberry.
Miss Morganberry. I do think the performance of her voice is pretty good. It's funny. She's got to sound slightly dim-witted, and her voice, the way she was talking to Lex in that scene just then, reminds me so much of what's her name from Lois and Clark that takes over Intergang.
What the
The
hell is her
blonde,
name?
the blonde girl. She pretends she's a ditzy blonde until she's got control of Intergang, and it turns out actually she's very, very smart and she's absolutely ruthless.
Yeah.
Mindy something. I forget. I think it's Mindy something.
Yeah.
But the voice is very, very similar. And I kind of like that. I'll tell you why you're having trouble remembering the name. Probably the same reason I am, though. It's just purely because Bruce Campbell is typically in those episodes as well. And let's face it,
Bruce
he's the
Campbell
one
and
you're going to
Peter
watch.
Boyle.
Yeah. Oh, Peter Boyle was great as well, you know. I've been a fan of him since I was a kid and I saw Young Frankenstein. Just phenomenal comic actor.
Mm.
It is funny, you know, though. I know I mention it every time we watch a Ruby Spears, but when I see the LOS on the cape, it just keeps me thinking, man, Bruce Timm, you could have done it if you wanted to.
Mm. And I've said it multiple times too. That is one of the defining character aspects of his cape.
Yeah.
There's only 3, maybe 4 capes in all of comicdom that you can see them in silhouette and you know exactly whose it is.
I would say Superman's, Batman's, and maybe Doctor Strange, just because he's got the cool, he's got those giant.
Doctor Strange and also Shazam, or sorry, Captain Marvel.
Yeah, Captain Marvel definitely. He's got this very short, it's sort of fluffy, not fluffy, you know what I mean. The way it sort of floats about and stuff, it's a very cool looking cape.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's very different to some of the others. But I mean, the example I've always pointed to with the LOS on the cape is the death of Superman, with that iconic image of the cape on the stick, flapping like a cape. If it was just the plain red cape flapping on it, that could be anything. I mean, it's got the LOS on it, you know it's Superman's cape.
Yep. And, Bo Weaver does such a great job here as Superman again. It's a shame that he didn't do much more voice work after this, as far as I'm aware.
How old was he when he did this?
I think he was in his 30s.
I did notice a weird typo in the background a moment ago. There was a shot, and you could see on the notice board a Daily Planet cover, and it was written as the Daily Planer. It happens a lot, people accidentally put the wrong letters for whatever reason. I know when I spoke to Mike Carlin once, he said one of his biggest regrets in comics was the very first page of one issue, and it had something across the front, and Metropolis was spelt wrong. And it was just it was literally a full splash page. It was like a full page cover, and it was like massive, great big text. And he was like, he said to me, I don't know how I missed it. It just happens because obviously you're working so hard. You're reading 1,000 things at once, and your brain does fix the typo.
Yeah.
It does always make me laugh when I see stuff like that, though. All right. So how is he going to wipe Lex's memory by the end? I'm guessing it's
Oh,
that, or that they somehow trick and like they find, they do the Lois and Clark where they have Clark and Superman side by side or something.
well, I'm not
I'll
going to
wait
say
and
anything.
see.
I'm not going to say
No,
anything.
don't spoil it. I know something's coming because there's absolutely no chance that they're going to let Lex keep that information by the end. It's a weird thing, isn't it, with comic books? Like Zeppelins, blimps. Gotham City is famous for having a ton of Zeppelins. But I guess there's just a romantic quality to that type of aircraft. I want to ride one, Never had the chance, but I'd love to.
I think the only one that we really have here in the U.S. anymore is the Goodyear blimp.
I imagine there's privately owned ones.
Yeah, could be.
Nice effect on the kryptonite ring there.
Yeah, one thing that Ruby Spears could do very well was, special effects in the cartoons.
I liked how it was sort of glistening in the light and glowing, and yeah, it was cool. It would be very easy just to make it just plain green and just had a glow effect around it. The fact they actually did some animation to make it look like it was sparkling a little bit. I appreciate that. It's a little touch that they didn't have to do, and I appreciate that they actually did. Because let's face it, not every show bothered.
Yeah. Well, look at what Bruce Timm and Paul Dini did.
I barely even remember what kryptonite looked like in that. I think it was just plain green.
Yeah.
With some, did it have like white outlines instead of black? And that was like the main difference. And then they just added like a basic green glow effect around it.
Yeah.
They could have done a little bit more, but like I say, they didn't have to. So I can't hold it against them, really.
Now, if we could have just gotten that scene in Superman the movie.
What, instead of him laying across the tracks?
Yeah. Because
Do you
when
not
you
like
watch
that? Do you not like that scene? I know it doesn't make any sense whatsoever because of the way that trains actually clasp onto tracks so that they can't just roll off all the time.
Yeah,
So it would make no sense at all.
It is because as you're watching him laying across the track, you can see the train is about 3 inches above him.
Yeah. Still, those movies do rely on sort of almost a magical comic book logic. Things that should never work do. So let's face it, I think it was Superman Returns that was the first one that actually thought about the physics of Superman's powers. Like when they had the airplane sequence, when he tries to pull up on the wing and the wing snaps off and all of that. Most Superman projects would have let him just grab hold of the wing and that would have been enough because I think in comic books it's almost like a touch telekinesis sort of ability, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know the Connor Kent 90s Superboy did he had that power taken up a notch. I love 90s Superboy, and I love that power with touch telekinesis that he's got. It's just such a fun idea. When you see it in action. I'll tell you what, this show is very good at the super saves. Some interesting sequences, the way that he's using his powers and stuff. You can tell that they got writers that knew what they were doing when it came to that sort of thing. People that took the genre element seriously.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, Jimmy never looks right in just a regular tie.
Yeah, he
I wish they kept him in the bow tie. Yeah.
But
I'm fine even when he doesn't have a tie at all of any kind. It's just for some reason that regular sort of tie just doesn't feel right on Jimmy. Why do I recognize his voice?
Because that's Bo Weaver.
Oh, he's just doing another voice.
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. I was going to say, I'm sure I've heard that voice before. It was probably just in a previous episode of this.
Yeah, remember back in this time, multiple people were doing multiple voices. It wasn't just, this one does just this voice and this one does just this voice. And then we have,
it's like The Simpsons continues to be to this day.
Yeah.
Like, you've got the main cast, but they play pretty much the entire population of Springfield.
Yeah.
But even Star Trek, the animated series, like, let's face it, the whole cast from that, I mean, especially Jimmy Doohan, he was
the only ones who didn't do other voices in it were Shatner, Nimoy, and Kelly.
Makes sense. They're probably the ones out of the cast, they're probably the ones that were still the most famous, probably considered their time most valuable. I like that Nichelle Nichols got to do a few more roles in that, though. I always thought she did a good job.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you could totally tell it was her. But she still did a good job with the performance.
Yep.
Yeah, her voice is exactly like, what's her name from Lois and Clark? I wouldn't even be surprised if the actress from Lois and Clark was copying this, maybe. Because it is ridiculous how close it is.
Yeah. I love this. He's sitting there saying, come on, change.
So is that how they're going to do it? They're just going to sort of gaslight Lex into into thinking that Clark isn't Superman. They're not actually going to remove his memory. They're just going to convince him that the machine is faulty.
Just watch. I'm not saying a word.
No, there we go. So yeah, they pulled a Lois and Clark.
But they did it better than the way Lois and Clark did it, with that holographic Superman.
There it is again with the sparkly green kryptonite, and I think, man, that effect works. Now, it works maybe the best I've seen in animation regarding kryptonite, and that's saying something.
And of course, we've got the your favorite thing about kryptonite.
Turning his skin green.
Actually turns his skin green.
Something that we always appreciated in Superboy. It's funny that the two shows from 1988 are the only ones that I can think of that actually did it. Not used to seeing his skin turn quite that green, though. Usually it's just a slight tint. Obviously, there was a lot of kryptonite around him at that moment.
Yeah. They did it also in one episode of Super Friends, when it was the Superpowers, the legendary Galactic Superpowers, the Galactic Guardians. The Death of Superman episode. He actually is that green.
Yeah, you're right, though. That henchman, very strange how, stylishly they dressed him, considering he's not an important character at all.
Yeah.
But it's almost like maybe they intended for him to be bigger later on if the show had continued. I don't know.
Well, I kind of hope that if the show had gone on, we would have gotten, stuff like Bizarro, Mixed Pitlick.
I would hope so. That would have been good. I would have loved to have seen what this show in particular would have done with those characters. Same with Toyman, Metallo,
I mean, as is
Parasite
this show
would have been great.
Yeah, this show really only gave us a couple of established Superman foes. Lex, of course. We got the prankster.
I'm looking forward to seeing the prankster. Don't remember which episode that is. So wait, so Pa Kent played Clark? That is brilliant. How though?
Well, first he was wearing a girdle.
Yeah.
Second, he was wearing a mask. He had lifts in his shoes to make him look taller. And second, he didn't say a word.
True. So here we are, back to the Kent Family album.
Yep.
Overnight with the Scouts.
Yeah, this episode's a little silly.
That's okay.
Then again,
you know how I love the Super Baby stories in the Bronze and Silver Age comics. You know, I love how silly that stuff is. It's almost like a Looney Tunes cartoon at times.
Yeah, and that's what you get with this. And the Scoutmaster is also being voiced by Bo Weaver.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah, you can kind of tell with that one. It's not exactly the same as his Superman or Clark, but you know, you can hear a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
You know, the thing, even though these are entertaining, these Superman family album stories, it's almost like they couldn't decide whether they were doing, you know, a serious Superman cartoon or a Looney Tunes cartoon, you know, having both the standard Superman and then these.
I'm okay with that though. It's almost like we just, you know, we still got the main show, which is entertaining as hell. Like I'm loving it so far. But then you've also got like these little bonus mini-sodes at the end of each one.
Yeah.
Almost like it would have been if they were to do it today, it probably would just be like a bonus feature on the DVD or something. It'd just be like an extra little thing. Maybe they'd be webisodes that release alongside the main show. I don't think they necessarily would have been part of the main show though. But I think it works, you know.
And these do take the place of, you know, like the Super Baby and then the Superboy stories, you know, because again, the continuity of this show was basically the John Byrne era, you know, and he didn't have a Superboy career.
Does Superboy come into these though later on?
Nope.
Huh. Okay, that's a shame.
You know, that's the one gripe that I have with the Byrne era is the removal of Superboy.
Yeah, me too. Still, you know, it was retconned after a while.
And thankfully, it's back again.
Yeah. You know, I know not everybody loves Jeff Johns these days, but I think he's a very good writer, and I love when he writes Superman in particular. And honestly, Secret Origin, I think, is my favorite origin story of Superman because it combines so much of what I love about classic and modern. It's just, for me, that's the best version.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, it made Superboy canon again.
Yeah. And now he officially is official canon. He did exist as Superboy. You know, it wasn't just, you know, something he did only when he went into the future with the Legion.
It's suggested that he was being Superboy in Secret Origin, but he was embarrassed by the costume, so he just did everything at super speed. Which was a fun idea, that he sort of took a while to gain confidence in wearing the suit and doing everything at super speed. You can tell that they were pulling some influence from Smallville as well, with like the red, blue, blur era of the show.
Yep.
So I think it works. I'm glad that it's actually full on. No, he was publicly known as Superboy again, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so there we go. Yeah, not the best Kent Family album thing, but I mean, I like seeing little bits and pieces of Clark's childhood. You know, sweet little moment when he saves the raccoon. Yeah, just shows yeah. Big part of Clark Kent is that he's just a really kind person, nice to everybody, including animals, obviously. We just had a little touch of that there. I don't think the story was necessary, but it was fine. It's not my favorite of the family albums ones we've seen so far.
So when we do eventually get to the next episode of Ruby Spears, the one that's Triple Play / The Circus, Triple Play, that's our prankster episode.
Okay. I'm guessing if it's Triple Play, it's a team up thing with multiple. No?
It's a baseball reference.
Okay, I don't watch baseball. It's not even really a big thing in the UK, obviously.
I know.
People are more into cricket or rounders. Rounders, I guess, is the closest we've got to baseball. Very, very similar.
Yeah. But
I like baseball well enough, you know. I've seen the occasional baseball movie. The Jackie Robinson story in particular is a very good movie.
That's the one with
it's the one where Jackie Robinson plays himself. No. I'm talking one from it was black and white, this film. This was really cool though that they actually got Jackie Robinson to actually play himself in the movie. I don't remember that happening very often. Maybe it happened a bit more regularly.
There was another movie where something like that happened. It was Pride of the Yankees with Gary Cooper playing Lou Gehrig.
No,
Babe Ruth actually played himself in the movie.
That's cool. I like that. I like whenever they do stuff like that. It doesn't happen nearly often enough. But no, they did make a remake of the Jackie Robinson story a while ago, and Chadwick.
That's
Boseman,
the one with Harrison Ford in it.
Yeah, Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther himself, played Jackie Robinson in that one. I'm told it's very, very good. I've only ever seen the original though, which I only watched.
You know, that reminds me of when Jimmy Kimmel was doing the mean tweets.
I used to like those segments. Yeah.
And apparently, they got one that was talking about Chadwick Boseman, and he had Chadwick reading it. He says, "Why is this the toughest guy in the universe named Chadwick?"
Oh, that reminds me of 30 Rock. Do you ever watch that? Michael Sheen is in a few episodes of that, and he plays a character named Wesley Snipes. And the thing is, some people keep saying, like Liz Lemon, like the what's her name, Tina Fey's character in it, says to him, like, it's kind of ridiculous that you're named Wesley Snipes. He says, is it any more ridiculous than Wesley Snipes being named Wesley Snipes? It's the whitest name in the world. Like, really, when you hear the name Wesley Snipes, what do you picture? Do you picture like a really badass black guy, or do you picture like the whitest British, like, Englishman of all time? It's like, no, you picture someone like Michael Sheen.
Yeah.
And it's right, you know, Wesley Snipes. It does sound like a posh British guy's name. But there you go. Thank you for reminding me of that. That was one of my favourite gags, actually, from 30 Rock. I might need to watch that show again if it ever comes on Netflix or Amazon Prime in the UK. Seems every time I try and watch it, I get about halfway through the first season and they remove it again. So there you go. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.